Veganism, a philosophy and way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as possible and practical, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose, and by extension promotes the development and use of animal-free alternatives for the benefit of humans, animals, and the environment. In dietary terms, it denotes the practice of dispensing with all products derived wholly or partially from animals. Official definition of veganism, adapted in 1979 by the National Vegan Society. Although it may sound complicated, essentially being vegan means that one does not use or consume anything that is or comes from an animal. But what is veganism? A modern fad, an invention of the hippies, or is there a deeper historical link to the trending lifestyle? In fact, veganism is a relatively new concept in chronological history, originating from vegetarianism, loosely described as the practice of consuming animal products but not the animal itself. Proof of philosophies resembling that of vegetarianism and maybe even veganism can be traced back as far as 6th century BC to figures such as Greek philosophers, including Pythagoras, inventor of the Pythagorean theorem, and could even be interpreted in several ancient Hindu practices as well as early Buddhism, to religions that heavily emphasize benevolence towards animals. Fast forward to the early 1800s, where veganism and vegetarianism, although still on a relatively minor scale, began to become recognized. Particularly in America, veganism became advocated by doctors, claiming it to cure diseases such as cancer, vitamin deficiencies, or blemishes. With this new health trend came a new level of public objection to animal products. 1944 was a revolutionary year in terms of veganism. Up until this point, there was no title to describe the diet and philosophy we know veganism to be today. A man by the name of Donald Watson assembled with a group to collectively decide on an official title. Some suggested names included dairyman or benevore or vegan, but eventually they decided on vegan, a name combining the beginning and end of the word vegetarian. The National Vegan Society was then founded the same year, 1944, and the term vegan was officially coined, resulting in the beginning of modern-day vegans.
My name is Caitlin. I'm 15. I'm vegan, and I describe that as not eating any animal products except for local honey. I decided to become vegan approximately 3 years ago when my brother came back from hippie college a vegan, and I started to do more research on factory farming in particular, and decided that that wasn't something I wanted to support. Ethical certainly was why I decided to become vegan. There's also health benefits that have come with it. It's certainly easier to avoid things like fast food and unhealthy things being vegan. I originally just sort of avoided anything that wasn't from a small farm, but eventually decided that, particularly with dairy, it's never perfect, really, because I've been vegetarian my whole life, so it was sort of a natural progression to veganism. It's really not as hard as people assume it is. Even doctors tend to assume that vegans and vegetarians can't get enough protein or iron. I do take an iron supplement because I don't really like spinach that much, but I get enough protein mostly from beans, probably. I eat a lot of legumes. A lot of curries is sort of a supplement, is sort of a dietary thing that I have all the time. But yeah. I think it's extremely excessive. There's sort of almost a culture around food in America that is about eating a lot, and a lot of unhealthy food, really. Particularly, I've noticed that there's this stigma around finishing your meal, which I am never someone who finishes my meal because I eat until I'm full. But in a lot of cultures around the world, I think a modern thing is to always eat until your plate is empty. In an ethical way, I think it's important to change it because I am a lover of animals of any sort, and I think people they don't realize or don't care about the cruelty that happens in factory farming situations, and in a health way, it's just so much better in the way that we eat, because vegans, part of the lifestyle is avoiding processed food. I heard recently that there's been studies about there was a sharp decline in health and even the lifespan of humans when we started farming, because we didn't have a balanced diet anymore. We were relying on things like wheat and rice, and they're not bad things. They're things that everyone should eat, and I'm not saying that farms are a bad thing, but it's really important to have a balanced diet. Definitely, even in the past few years, since I've only been vegan a few years, I've seen this revolution of vegan alternatives to anything you can possibly imagine, and it's because vegans are becoming prominent, and the more people decide to become vegans, the more these big corporate companies will start to realize that factory farms aren't sustainable anymore, and if you don't support those companies, then they won't be able to if enough people do that, they won't be able to make these unhealthy foods if you don't buy them. I guess I would just say it's not as hard as you think. In today's day and age, it's completely plausible and simple, really, to just say, no, I'm not going to eat that anymore. And also, we're not, sort of the stereotype for vegans in particular is that we're out to get you, and we hate meat eaters, and you're the enemy. I don't think of meat eaters as the enemy, and it's totally a personal decision, whatever you want to eat. And I love when people become vegan because it's something that I personally agree with, but I also don't think that it's necessarily the end-all be-all. There's so many different ways to be healthy, and I support small farms. Even though I don't personally use their products, I think they're doing a great thing. So it is a really healthy way to live your life if you do it correctly.